You're all very welcome here tonight, and the weather's beautiful outside. But it's nice and warm in here, and we really welcome you from Jennymount, and we're very pleased that you come back again to join us this year. So I'm going to hand you over now to the boss.
It's never been called out before. Yes, you're all very welcome here tonight. Thank you for that welcome. My name is Jared. I'm a member of the Four Corners team here. Maybe more important than a member of the Four Corners team, I'm a proud North Belfast man as well, so it's really nice to be able to invite people and welcome you to North Belfast as well as welcome you to Jennymount. As you probably know, as part of this festival, we really love to try and get people to visit parts of the city that we're not from or not familiar with, so it's always nice to find out where everyone's from. Can we get a show of hands if anybody's local is from North Belfast here? Oh, good. Yes, well represented. What about the south? There's some difficult getting across today. We heard bad traffic. East Belfast?
Okay.
Oh, it could be spread here. West Belfast. Strong contention at the front there. So, I think our guest speaker that you're here to hear tonight needs very little introduction. I know Shannon's going to say a little bit about it in a moment, so we're really looking forward to hearing Shannon Campbell's interview with Harold Good. But before that, we're going to have a little bit of music, and the music is from Zoe. And after Zoe, we're going to hear from Harold, so we're going to enjoy the singing. Thank you, Zoe.
It's so nice to be here. I just want to say thank you before I sing. Thank you so much for inviting me to be part of it and for having me here. I'm going to sing a few songs for you guys tonight that I wrote myself. So I never really did any singing up until a few years ago. I used to sing in secret for many years, and I'm not sure quite how it's happened, but over the past few years, I've started singing more publicly, and I still find it absolutely terrifying. So it's nice to look out and see the friendly faces. So I know that our theme tonight is about journeys and about peace, and I thought I would start off with a song that I wrote about the longing that I think we all have for peace and a simple, peaceful life. So this song is called Prayer of My Heart.
Secure. Thank you, Zoe. That was beautiful. As Jared mentioned, this year at the Four Corners Festival, our theme is journey. Not as something neat or as finished, but as something lived over time, often through uncertainty, risk, patience, and change. Harold Good's life has been shaped by a long journey towards peace and reconciliation, and one that has taken him from Derry to the United States through prisons and negotiations, through waiting and moments of profound moral weight. It's also about a handover. What one generation has carried, what has been learned along the way, and what is now being passed on to those of us who didn't live through the same violence, but who inherit its consequences. And that is what tonight's conversation is going to be about, not just about looking back. This is a conversation about where we've come from, where we are, and how we continue on the journey. Harold, 67 years of travel, and in your words, as a Derry boy with a West Cork father, a mother from Armagh and a Waterford wife, you have inherited a more than usual understanding of this island and its histories. When you look back now, Harold, what feels like the true beginning of your journey towards peace? Not necessarily as a moment you recognise in hindsight, but as it felt while you were living it.
Not to hold even himself. And to just say thank you very much for the invitation to be a part of this. I feel very honoured to be a part of the Four Foreigners programme. And I apologise for the fact that I'm a bit disabled. You may see me coming in a wheelchair because I was silly enough to fall down a flight of stairs before Christmas. And so I'm, forget about the disability, but I did remember that the last time I was in that kind of situation was a Palm Sunday, Saturday night for Palm Sunday weekend when I was in the church of University Road, and I was bringing in palm trees for the next Sunday morning, and I fell down the church steps, and I had an Achilles tendon to deal with. And so I was going around with a plaster for quite a while, and people used to say to you, "What happened to you?" And I couldn't say I fell down the church steps. Silly thing to say. So I used to make up stories. And we were going in, one of them was, and I was in this one time, this young lady, and she, "What happened to you?" And I said, "Bungee jumping." And immediately I could see, I was elevated, to great heights. That variation for somebody by age bungee jumping. So, and just in case any of you are wondering, it wasn't bungee jumping. Nor was it too much celebration at Christmas. It was just a trip. Anyhow, so I'm delighted to be here, to be part of this, and to share, and to get to know Shannon and David. I planned in great style to be here tonight. Belfast Giants limousine. And I was remembering my friend, Father Alec, telling how he was with President Mary McAleese at the Arts all evening, and she sent him home in the presidential car. And Father Alec was so pleased, and he got to the Redemptorist house, and he said, "Very disappointing, they were all in bed." So I told Claude to make sure the neighbours have, I get back to that. Do you mind? Anyway, that's a lovely way of saying, Shan, we'd love to meet you and David. We had a chat before now. And now, the question you asked me was about my own journey and about what has formed me as a person. And I think all of us probably, if we're almost to say, may be shaped in ways that we had not anticipated. We don't set out to plan. And that's the thing about journeys I think are so exciting about journeys. You're never quite sure where they're going to take you. And from my boyhood, my life has been, I think as you hinted, interesting in Methodist churches, David knows, we were known as an itinerant area of ministry. Itinerants. And that sometimes people think of that as derogatory terms. We're very proud to be itinerants. And when they write up our story at the end of our life, they talk about our years of travel. Our years of travel. And so I'm a traveller. And I'd be very blessed in having had the opportunity to travel in so many different directions. And not of my choosing, because we are, in our industry, we are appointed, maybe some consultation. At the end of the day, we go where we are sent. That's one of the promises that we make at our ordination. We have to publicly, we're asked the question, will you go where you are sent? And as a result of that, I've been sent to all sorts of places, north, south, east and west, and other countries as well. And so traveling has been a part of my life and very, very enriching. And I've learned so much through traveling. And hopefully in those journeys we've been able to bring something to the next part of it. Does that answer some way?
Yes.
And I guarantee you did hit the wrong parentage, there's north and south, which meant that wherever I travel on this island, I feel at home. I don't feel a northerner or a southerner. I just being a part of this. This is my island home, and there's no border in my mind. There never has been, because we were brought up within that context of having family north and south, and so that's been part of the journey as well. I didn't have to make big changes in my thinking about this part of Ireland, that part of Ireland. I just trust holding each part.
You didn't set out to be a peace builder. In the early years of your ministry, when did you begin to realise staying on the Shankill, in prisons, intense conversations, was itself a decision that would shape your life?
Yes, that's an interesting question, because shortly, 2 years after I was ordained, I felt I needed to see beyond the shores of this island. And I had opportunity to go to work and study in the United States for 4 years. And that was a very defining part of my story, because that was in the mid-60s. And we arrived in, I remember we went out, we got married, Trude and I, and we went out on the SS America. And it was just in the middle of the political election between L.B. Johnson and a man called Barry Goldwater. How many people remember the name of Barry Goldwater? Interesting, not a lot. Barry Goldwater was forerunner of Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump, which probably modelled himself on Barry Goldwater, only more so. And on the boat going out, we would hear people having the kind of arguments that you have at election times when there are extremes to be chosen. And that was the beginning of my political education. And I would have to say, growing up in Belfast, Derry boy, we were growing up in Belfast, we were really, middle class Protestant suburbanites. We never really had any kind of awareness of what was going on underneath the surface in our community. We were protected from all of that. And but on that journey out to America, I began to realize what it must be like to be living in a very divided, openly divided community, politically divided community. And there were people on the journey who were saying, if he gets in, I'm leading America. And there were very fierce arguments going on. And when we got there, we were in northeast Ohio, which was a very red state, and the congregation, the church that we were in, was divided, and my senior pastor was trying to give leadership and didn't find it easy. And that was a huge introduction for me into the whole mixture between faith and politics and culture and colour and racism. I began to hear people speak in a way that reminded me of things I'd heard here growing up in Northern Ireland on the connection between racism and sectarianism. And that was a huge part of my education. And my senior pastor used to take me on protest marches. And then when I was coming near the end of my time in seminary, I was asked to look after part-time a black church. And during that time, I wasn't very long in it until the news of Martin Luther King's assassination. And then Bobby Kennedy and the turmoil of the country and that community at that time. And I learned so much during that period of time. And I often say, I look back, those people in that congregation taught me more about the meaning of grace than I ever learned from the book. And all of that. So anyhow, it was time to go back to Northern Ireland, back to Ireland. And I had sent word that I would like to go to somewhere maybe in the south of Ireland. I thought it might be nice for Clodagh to be closer to her family and maybe a little bit less busy than I had been, and I could relax a little bit. And the word came, you're not going to Tipperary, you're going to the Shankill Road. And there's a long way to Tipperary from Shankill Road. And that was in 1968. We'd heard Joan Baez singing many times in America, "We Shall Overcome." And I come back and Joan Baez was singing "The Streets of Derry, We Shall Overcome," and we know what was happening at that time. And so I was in the Shankill Road, right at the heart of things, and that's a whole story in itself. And if you want to read about it in the book, you get that in there. It talks about what that ministry was about. It was very much on the street. And that was the beginning of, realizing we must do more than just first aid. We've got to start to think about how do we bring some healing to this very broken society. When all of the physical violence ceases, how do we bring healing? And we began to try and build some slender connections between the Shankill and the Falls and between the churches. That was the beginning of really being active. And the time came when we were going to go back to her. I'd had an invitation to her church back. It was very attractive. And I was all ready to go. And with church leaders here, in their wisdom or lack of it, called me in and said, if you want to go, go. But we would like you to reconsider. And we would like you to, we feel that maybe you've got something to give after what you've been through here. And I always give in to flattery. And I yielded to flattery. I wasn't sure whether it was God's will or not, but I was staggered. And I ended up in Corramila. And that was taking that whole ministry of reconciliation to a new level, a new stage, a new situation, new opportunity.
I think I'm right in saying, Harold, that your time in the United States shaped you in ways that you probably couldn't have anticipated. For those of us, maybe in our 20s, 30s, how do we recognise which experiences are quietly forming us for responsibilities down the line that we perhaps yet can't see?
Yeah. A good question, because I think a lot of us are unconscious. And maybe, and I don't say it lightly, I think there's a leading of the Spirit. And we're not always conscious of the leading of the Spirit. Sometimes we find ourselves saying things and doing things and being in places that we hadn't really planned. And I can only suggest that I wasn't clever enough to make some of the decisions that were made for me. If it had been left to me, I probably would have made different decisions, which would have been, I think, in hindsight, the wrong decisions. But somewhere there's the leading and the guiding of the Spirit. And perhaps that was when the elders of the church asked me to come and see them to say, greet people. And they felt led to say to me, we feel you've got an industry here, and we'd like you to reconsider. And if I take no credit for having made the decision to stay, I think that was made for me. Maar het is stand op het.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important to be open in that way. Much of the work you describe in the book unfolds without any guarantee of success, and a lot of the time in complete secrecy as well. How did you learn to keep going when outcomes were very unclear, slow, often invisible? And as a follow-up to that question, how do you understand patience now?
Yeah. Again, good questions, and I don't have sort of answers to these questions because a lot of the time you're responding to. You get up in the morning, you're not sure what the challenges of that day will be, and so you respond instinctively, or very big end just from the. Is that better? All right. You're responding maybe from the prompting of the Spirit again. I think at the heart of peacemaking is relationships. Relationships. And I can remember when we began, some of us from different churches, not just from our own Methodist tradition, but from other churches, and a few of us who felt we wanted to see if we could build some kind of linkage, build some kind of bridges between people. I remember we used to go to meetings and gather people together, and I remember the last couple of those I went through. All I can remember about it was people waving fingers at each other. If you would do this, why don't you think about that? Do you realize? Come on. What about you, Lord? And I left one of those meetings and say, good on you, but I'll not be back. And that was when those of us who just felt we needed to begin in another way. Leave that to the politicians if they want to shout at each other. They're very practiced at it. Just listen for them today. They're still at it. Where does it take them? Where will it take us? Don't get me started on that one. And we had an event recently at Edgehill College where David Gallagher, one of our folks, he's writing up something of the story of that journey that maybe was made through that peace process. And in the room, Jim Gibney and Tom Hartley, they came to this event at the Methodist event. And Tom Hartley said, do you know where the breakthrough came? He said it was your invitation to your home. Not to some other building somewhere. You invited us to your home. He said, you don't realize what that meant. It's about relationships. Unconditional relationships. being real with each other and being open with each other and respecting each other. And that was the lesson we learned through building those relationships. And that kept hope alive. Anytime we felt we were getting to an impasse, the relationships were sustained. That was the most important thing. Those relationships never, ever fractured. To this day, we call each other friends. People who you would not have expected to be engaging with each other quietly, gently, in each other's homes.
Thank you. And that is a lovely note to finish the first part of our conversation on. And at this point, we'd like to invite Zoe to come back up and sing another song. Hey, Zoe.
Not good as been sing.
Oh.
Well, this may be quite appropriate to what's just been discussed, because this is a song about relationships. It's a song really about the journey of conversion, but it's about unconditional love. I wrote it from the point of view of Mary Magdalene, who I think is a really useful model for us all to have as someone who had a profound conversion and continued to be converted, and it is an ongoing process for all of us. And part of that process, I think, is about learning to let yourself be loved, accept yourself as you are, and learn to see yourself through God's eyes. So this song is called Arise.
Your said, "Woman, why are you weeping?" He said, "Mary, who are you seeking? I have loved you with an everlasting love," he said. "I have numbered all the hairs upon your precious head. There is nothing you can do to break this covenant. Arise, arise, do not cling to me, for the joy you seek will come to you. Everything you ask of me, it will be done for you. And the Father and the Son will make their home in you. Arise,
Thank you again, Zoe. Very apt indeed. Harold, moving on to another important part of your journey. You were asked to witness the decommissioning of IRA weapons, as many of us know, after decades of violence. When you think back to that day, what stays with you most? Not necessarily politically, but personally, maybe even spiritually too.
Yeah, it was quite a remarkable privilege. To be trusted was always a privilege. Remember David Irvine saying to me, "Harold, were you honoured?" That's not the word that comes to my mind, but I said to him next episode, I said, "You ever bothered me a bit, you think, to be honest. But actually, the greatest honour anybody could give you is to trust you." And so in that spirit. So, Elder Alec, who became a dear friend, we travelled together with the quartermasters of the IRA, and we don't talk about the detail, the modalities. But we leave that to others if they want to talk about that, but we don't talk about that. But we came to the end of what was almost a week of travelling together, living together. And I always remember the conversations we would have had in the evenings, staying in different places, sharing our evening meals, and those conversations staying with me, because I felt like I was a pastor. People were sharing their grief, their sadness, their loss, the loss of years of family life, the loss of companions in the struggle. It was very moving to be trusted in a pastoral way in that journey, as well as the decommissioning part of it. But we came to the end of it, and during the week we had noticed there was a young man who travelled with us, and he always had a rifle over his shoulder. And we thought, bit odd, but who are we? And he was always there in the shadows. We came to the last day when General de Chastel, who was overseeing the modalities of the decommissioning, I can remember him standing And he'd been handed the last gun, as we thought. And I can remember him literally doing like this, you know. And then, at that moment, the young man who had been carrying this weapon walked up to the general, stood in front of him in military style, took the rifle off his shoulder and presented it to the general. And Father Alec leaned over to me and he whispered in my ear, "There goes the last gun out of Irish politics." That was a very remarkable moment to see it. It was theatrical. I'm sure it was planned, it was rehearsed, perhaps, but it was very, very, very dramatic. This was their way of saying, "That's it, it's over." And when it came to the end of we were saying goodbye to each other, I had, for reasons that I never quite understood, I had been in a religious bookshop and I picked up a little bundle of bookmarks with the prayer of St. Francis. And I put those in my pocket and I carried them all week. And we came to the end of the week. And I said to the lads, "I have something I'd like to give you." I said, "I'm not one of those proddy preachers who goes around giving out tracts, but I do have something I'd like to give you." And a mug guy over there, he said, "Hey," "are those tickets to the All Ireland's Bible?" I said, "No, but I tell you what, after this year's All Ireland has been forgotten, people will still be praying this prayer. And I'd just like to offer it to you." And they all happily took those. It must be about 3 years later, I was speaking at an event down in the borderlands, and a man came up to me in the lunch break and he said, "My neighbour said if I saw you, just to whisper to you, he still carries the card in his pocket and he prays it every morning before he goes out." And I thought, people are saying to me, "Good, what are you doing there? You're a preacher, you should be doing your pastoral work." And I thought, well, that isn't what it's about, you know. And I was very moved and touched by that. So those were some of the, and again, it was about person to person. It was about relationships. It was about being there to share as all of us imperfect people, sharing our imperfections in the hope that we might be able to bring something better to share.
Thank you. Wow, what a story. That takes us on nicely, actually, to the next question. Throughout your journey, faith seems less like certainty and more like accompaniment, staying with people like those you just mentioned across profound moral complexities. How did the journey you took change what faith meant for you?
I think it affirmed for me what in our minds, in our theories, faith is about. Faith is about believing in something beyond ourselves. Faith is about believing in that which you cannot really explain. And it's about the unknown. And so, for me, discovering in the unknown and discovering in the unexpected was an affirmation of faith. Something that you didn't sit down and plan, you're going to do this or do that or the other. And some of it was beyond explanation. Some of it could only attributed to God working in a mysterious way. And I can remember after one meeting where, and I think, David, you were at it, where we were having a very important discussion about where we could go next. And as ministers, we're all a wee bit hesitant to sort of look as if we're trying to evangelize and to take advantage of situations. But I remember saying, it is our custom, it is our custom to pray before we go. And a leading person from the, shall we say, the other part of the community said, please do. Please do. I remember that. It was very affirming that we weren't just doing this from sort of do good kind of motive. It was part of our ministry, it was part of our faith journey, it was part of our sharing where we believed God was taking us. And just instinctively, I remember saying, we like to end our conversations with a prayer. And the response, please do, please do. If God wasn't there in that moment, well, where is he? And where will he?
Thank you. Harold, your generation carried the baton through violence, negotiation, trust, which was very fragile. And as someone who lived that journey from the inside, what do you think my generation is now being handed? And what would you like us to hear about the responsibility of faith communities in helping us move on from that history?
I worry about where is the next generation? I'm looking around. Yeah. And looking around. And some of you look much younger than I do, but I worry about conversations I have even with my grandchildren. They're not really terribly bothered or interested. And I find that they're not unusual. I talk to people in other families. Part of that I understand. They're sort of saying, well, look, that's not your problem. You know, that's the past. Leave it where it belongs. But you know, if you don't, they say, if you forget the past, you're in danger of repeating it. I would say, if you don't know about the past, you're in danger of repeating it. And I want a generation of young people to learn where we went wrong and how we began to address it. I have conversations with young people, some within my family and other young people, and they really are very unaware of the history that brought us to where we were. They don't have a real understanding of it. Some people say, that's good. Isn't it great that they don't burden them with all that? But I want them to have an understanding of where we got it so wrong, and those before us got it as wrong. Even maybe more than we did. We inherited a lot of what was wrong. If we had my generation had understood better, I don't believe we would have been in the situation that we were in if we had understood better. So I want to see in our schools a proper curriculum that will help young people look objectively. People are afraid, oh, whose story you're going to tell. Look, history is history. History should be an objective study to help us to understand where we were and how we got there where we were, and importantly, how we got away from where we were. But we need to help our young people think about that. So many of our young people have gone off from here, and bless them. That's their choice, and they have the right to make that choice. But I covered some of the young people for the future that we are losing. So that's part of it. I want to challenge young people. I remember I was asked one of the great honours in my life, but one of the greatest honours was to be asked to speak at my old school's prize day as a guest of honour. And I thought, what am I going to say to them? I remember saying, travel, journey. I'm talking about journeys. I said, I've had the wonderful opportunity and privilege of travelling all over the world, and I hope you will have that also. Take advantage of it. But when you're deciding where you're going to settle, don't rule out this place for two reasons. One is that whenever you travel or wherever you travel, you realize this is not the worst place in the world. And secondly, we need you. We need you. And I was very touched by the number of young people who came to me afterwards and said, we were interested in what you said because our parents and other people are telling us that with any wit and wisdom we get up out of this place. So you need to challenge. But the second part of that is, how do we deal with that past? How do we find healing and grace to move forward? And again, forgive me, but I refer to the book because within it I have reproduced the notes of a sermon I gave at the Oliver Plumpett Church on how what is the contribution that we had to bring from our faith community to the healing of the past and to help us move forward. What is our distinctive contribution as distinct from political formula? I don't think the politicians, I don't think it's within their bag of tricks to help us. What do we have from people who believe in the gospel of Christ? What do we have to bring? And I say there are three things out of our vocabulary. First is compassion. And that relates to what I was saying about our understanding of fast. We have all fallen short. We have all done harm, hurt to each other. That we need to confess. Call it acknowledgement. Now, there's a whole thing about the legacy debate at the moment. I'm interested in the word that they want to weave into that, and rightly so, is the word acknowledgement. Call it confession or acknowledgement, whatever you want to call it. That's the starting point in any healing journey, in our family or in our church or in our community. We begin by being honest with each other about where we have failed each other. Second word is grace. Grace. And that's that's at the heart of the gospel. It's offering to each other that which we neither deserve to receive, and others may not feel that they deserve to be given. That's what grace is about. And the third word, which is the most difficult one of all, is forgiveness. So what do we have to bring to the table? Honesty, compassion, grace, and forgiveness. And I want us in the churches to start taking those words, of course, seriously, unpacking them. What do they actually mean? To lift them off the pages of the gospel and of the hymn books that we sing, Amazing Grace. Come on. What does it mean when we meet our neighbour? So I want us to think about, what do we have that is distinctive? Do you know what? I was in, just before Christmas, before I fell from grace, I was in Texas, and I was invited by a friend of mine who's a priest in Omaha. They said, before you go back, would you come over and spend a weekend with me? And I went over to him, and he said, I want you to come and I want you to help me. he had been given responsibility for uniting two churches in his parish, one which was a black church and the other which was the traditionally the white middle-class congregation. And they had a terrible history. The reason for the black church being separatist was in their history, the white congregation of Sacred Heart had treated their black neighbours so badly. When they came to church, they had to sit at the back of the gallery. Hard to believe that's only back in the 1950s. And now he's been asked to bring them together. So he said, maybe you have something to say out of where you come from. And so he invited them to stay after church for a lunch and a conversation with this guy from Ireland. And I shared with them confession, grace, and forgiveness. And do you know what? They've taken those three birds and carried them on through their Advent services. So we're talking not just about Northern Ireland. We're talking about any relationship that is broken, any history that we've got to move beyond. And gosh, aren't we something to bring from our faith? So let's stop saying it and let's start doing it.
Thank you. You spoke a lot there about what do we have to contribute, what can we bring to the table, and I'd like to ask you about that on a more global scale. And when I spoke to you on Saturday, you mentioned that other places in the world, particularly the US, was quite generous with us at a time when we needed it most. And is there something now in the current climate that perhaps other places in the world could learn from Northern Ireland and its history?
I think it's quite remarkable how, and we underestimate it, we undervalue it, how other countries, I mean, you don't hear about it much, but some of us know from the conversation we're invited into, people coming from other countries who are saying, can you help us with our problems? We're living in a very broken world. And we don't realize, we don't understand what a beacon of light this place has been around the world, beyond our deserving. But people are looking at us and looking to us. And I say, we not only have the opportunity, but I think we have the responsibility to share with a broken world something of our story, of what helped us to bring us to where we now are. You see, very shortly after our decommissioning, Father Alec and I were invited to the Basque Country. And that's a whole story in itself. Another chapter. And we spent years. I know the Basque Country better than Philly. Some other places that you might think I'd been, because we were back and forward, talking with people on both sides of that, which had a lot of parallels to our own. A lot of parallels. And it was the IRA of the Basque Country, and you had the hardline people who were the parallels to in our community. Alec, who had paved the way, and sadly didn't live to see the fruition of what he had become involved in and what I inherited from him as fellow traveller. And it was one of the privileges of my life was to be invited to be a witness to the decommissioning of the weapons of ETA in the Basque Country, an historic, horrible, bloody conflict. And together with the Archbishop of Milan, who took Alec's place, he was actually one of the people who was tipped to be Pope. So I was hoping he would collect and sit down out on that. He and I were the witnesses to that. It was a very similar story. That's one example. Colombia was another place. And some of us were asked to go and meet the top brass of FARC in their headquarters in Cuba. And I remember spending a day trying to help them think through decommissioning. What are they doing? Decommissioned. Nothing had to do with it. We were part of that story. And they looked to this case. And it is interesting, because do you remember there were the Columbia 3 from here? He went out to help FARC make even more lethal weapons and bombs. And here's this wee Methodist preacher from Ireland, went out to help them think about how you better get rid of them. Yeah. So, we have, I believe, huge responsibility as well as opportunity to share our story. But let's get ourselves sorted so we can go with some more credibility than we do at the moment. But that's part of it, the sharing of the story, and it's a responsibility as well as an opportunity.
Thank you. We're nearing the end of our conversation, Harold. I have a couple more questions for you. In the book, you said that while recognising the statesmanship, hope and vision of those who brokered the landmark Good Friday Agreement, we are on an unfinished journey. What, in your mind, is the next concrete step on the journey?
Well, I refer back to the three words which are a part of it. But I think those of us from within the community of faith, we have something distinctive to bring. But I think we must also challenge our politicians to act, people say behave, in a different way. We keep teetering on every day. Is there a chance that ball break down again and we would have a storm will fall and people are being asked to, come on. And I listen to the nations. We've got to challenge this kind of thinking. In a world where people are dying by not just the dozens, by in the hundreds, by the thousands. In a world where people are dying from hunger as well as from war and pestilence. You lift our newspaper and look at the headlines. What are we fighting over? Street signs. Come on. We've got to challenge our politicians. And my worry is we're not seeing a new generation coming forward. There are a few, less than. But I know from even within my own family, the young person who wanted to make this contribution. There comes a time when there must be another way of making a difference than squabbling. And I think we need to challenge them, not just through the ballot box when it comes to an election, say, I don't want this one, I want that. Challenge them when they're there. And I know there's some of you here who have, when I see my friend Joe there and others who have made very, very positive contribution, over the years. But come on, where are we going to get a new generation of people who will say, let's talk about the things that really matter and try to bring healing, and let's be a beacon to the world. So I think we've got to try that changes at that level as well as in our community. Again, let our churches, we have no right to challenge people in the political world if within the community of faith we haven't shown a new way forward. And now we've made a lot of progress, of course we have, but we still have a journey to go. I was talking there just on those who were in Rome last week, and I was asking did Steve Stockman, for example, have any reaction? And wonderful to hear they hadn't. Some of us remember that you couldn't do anything without having a protest at your church gate. And, and that's got a horrible atmosphere. Now, we move beyond that, but we've got to move to a much more positive way of demonstrating our oneness of Christ. Our oneness in Christ. We talk about it, we've got to demonstrate it fully and unapologetically and openly, and try to help those who are still living under the old dispensation to come out of that and to share with us in demonstrating what it really does mean to be one in Christ. One faith, one Lord.
Harold, if you could offer one piece of advice or guidance to those of us now carrying the baton, a message perhaps that we can take home to children, grandchildren in the classrooms, what would that be? Not necessarily a plan or a policy, but a way of being to young people now. What would that be?
Yeah, I think those of us who have children or grandchildren have these conversations around our family tales. Don't shy away from them. Those of us who believe in the things that we've been sharing here tonight, and what the Four Corners represents, unapologetically share this with our children and our grandchildren and help them to understand that we don't want them to inherit that which we inherited. I was thinking of, we're talking about journeys, and the words of Robert Frost came to mind. His poems, which you're familiar with, and the one about the road not taken, where he says, two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. Two roads diverged, and I took the one less travelled, and that has made all the difference. And the other one, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. We're on an unfinished journey. I think that's what Robert Frost was in his wonderful poem, challenging us to think, which of these roads are we going to go? The old familiar one, or the one as yet less travelled? Isn't that what I keep going back to the Gospels? And I think of Jesus at the Sea of Galilee. He saw these guys at the boats. And he said 2 words: follow me. Follow me. And they had a choice. They knew what Robert Frost was talking about. There were 2 roads they could go, and they chose to go the one less travelled. And it made a big difference in the word. And I believe that's what we're about. That's what the gospel is about. Not to go the populist road. Populism, it's destroying our work, but don't. It's awful. And it's not just America. A lot of it's closer to home. It's easy to point it out somewhere else. The road that's less travelled is the one that is perhaps less popular. come follow me. Eh? Follow me. There's a sermon coming down there. I haven't preached before. But it's coming on me very forcefully, but I hope I get an opportunity some of these days to develop it. Yeah, the road less travelled. But it changed the word on those who chose the one that was less travelled. Didn't they change the word? And we're their inheritors. And we, yeah.
What a lovely way to finish our conversation this evening, Harold. Thank you. Thank you for the journey you've taken and the honesty with which you've shared your journey with us tonight. And as one generation hands on the baton to another, we do so with deep gratitude for what has been carried, but also with a renewed sense of responsibility for what lies ahead. So thank you for helping us continue the journey.
Could I just introduce somebody over here? He's hiding over here. He came in with a big hat on. Martin O'Brien. There's Martin O'Brien. This book, I was the architect, but he was the bricklayer. And Martin might just something, if it's all right for him to have a last word.
Absolutely, yes. Please, Martin.
Yeah.
Martin, I'll give you this.
Well, I'm really honoured to be asked to say a couple of words. Harold, you are a national treasure, and we can. I won't come down on what sort of nation. We won't talk about that, but I think we can agree on that. And I thought, Harold, that I had sort of heard everything from you, because our relationship was back more than 30 years, but it really took off 6 years and 9 months ago, actually, in May 2019, when you asked me to become your bricklayer in chief. And I thought I had sort of, through the numerous meetings that we had, something like 2,000 emails, 20 hours of interviews, and I'll tell you, it wasn't easy transcribing all of them. But I thought I've heard it all. And then you tell us tonight a new story. And I was very touched by it, because you told us about Tom Hartley and how he said it made such a difference when you invited him to your home. And that, God knows how many stories, how much wisdom you can, dispense to us. I just must say this. In this Methodist church, to say what a privilege it was to be invited by Harold to help him write his book, because it taught me so much about the Methodist charism and about Methodism's commitment to social justice. I didn't know, that John Wesley had written a letter to a Roman Catholic all those years ago. So thank you, Harold, for enhancing my education in that regard. And I can just say, finally, what a joy that you chose the Four Corners Festival to make your first public appearance since your little mishap. May you have many, 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 many more public appearances, dispensing your wisdom and telling us so many, many, many more stories. Thank you.
They'll see it outside. It's over somewhere, a table over there, and it doesn't cost any more to have a sight.
Thank you, Martin, for that. And really special to have you here as well. Thank you. I'd like to invite Zoe to come up again and close us out. Thank you.
I just want to say again, thank you so much for having me here tonight. Thank you, Shannon, and everyone who's organised the festival. And also to you, Harold, for just sharing your experiences and your wisdom. It has been so interesting to listen to you. I feel like I'll take a real message of hope from everything I heard this evening, because you talked about walking into some really dark places. And even though you have to go into dark places, you know, having that hope that is sustained like by faith, it allows you to kind of go where you're sent boldly. So I wanted to finish with a song that has a message of hope, I think. I wrote this 10 years ago, just after my dad had passed away, and I actually didn't believe in God at the time. I didn't have any faith. And I wrote it to kind of comfort myself. And it was only years later, when I did come to faith, that I reread the lyrics, and I thought, actually, you can kind of hear this as a song about God's enduring love for us. So this is called Whatever the Distance.
When darkness falls and shadows call, I will be there to keep you safe. In troubled times, I'll be your guide. You never need to be afraid. You've been crying for the longest time, waiting for some kind of sign. Well, you've only got to know that I'm never letting go. And I will love you, whatever the distance. You only have to think of me and I'll be there. Kingdoms may fall, stars they may scatter, still I am with you through it all. I'll be the breeze that stirs the trees. I'll be the light that leads you home. Each time you're lost, you'll hear my voice and know that you've never been alone. Look around and you will find that I am always by your side, even in your darkest hour. I will offer you my power, and I will love you, whatever the distance. You only have to think of me and I'll be there. Kingdoms may fall, stars they may scatter, still I am with you through it all.
Thank you, Zoe, for the beautiful music. Thank you, Shannon, for hosting some great questions there. And Harold, it's been a privilege to be here with you tonight and to hear what you have to say. And I think I speak for all of us when I say we've been inspired. Probably once again, for those of us who've heard you speak before, but every time I hear you speak, I feel inspired over it. So thank you for that tonight, Harold. Thank you. Can I ask for one more round of applause for him? I'll get to the book in a second, but I do have some admin to go through just as we close our night. These festival events are free to attend thanks to a combination of funding and donations from attendees like yourselves. So thank you if you've supported us in the past. And as always, there are QR codes and buckets and envelopes and all sorts of things, all sorts of ways to donate. And we really appreciate any donations, contributions that can be made. And also on the envelopes, there's ways to sign up for our mailing list and sorts of things like that. Questionnaires as well. These just take a few minutes to fill out. There's an online survey and they will be emailed to you. Really helps us if you can take those few moments just to fill that in. There's a QR code for that as well somewhere too. Now, a couple of things. Did you know there's a book for sale? It is just in the foyer there as you came in. You're very welcome to purchase a copy of the book. Harold, you're going to be here for a little while to sign it if you would like that. And as well as that, there are refreshments upstairs. Now, I have a couple of things to tell you about that. First of all, do stay if you can for refreshments. The team here have put on some refreshments for us, and we're really grateful for that. So I think we're through the doors there and up the stairs. The lift, if you need the lift, it works, but the light doesn't. So you might want to turn your phone torch on before you get into the lift, or if you like a wee thrill, you can just try it in the dark. But maybe we'll see you up there if you brave the lift or just to these stairs. All right. Thank you for this evening. I hope you'd stay for 2 o'clock.